Final Fantasy VII Rebirth is a 10 out of 10 game. Here's why. Reviewing Final Fantasy VII Rebirth was always going to be a challenge. I've loved the original game since I first played it back in 1997, and I carry such a soft spot for it that I wasn't sure if those nostalgia glasses would perhaps overshadow this review. I was worried, was I going to be let down when I finally got to venture into the open world? Honestly, I had nothing to be scared of, because Final Fantasy VII Rebirth seems to do everything right, even the nostalgic throwbacks. Rebirth in this instance is a recreation, another shot at being an RPG masterpiece. What happens in this second part of the trilogy is scattered, with the story from the original game broken down into so many pieces. Of course, we're still trekking across the world to hunt down Sephiroth, but we're also running into Shinra at every opportunity. The big plot points generally follow the original game, except for those moments where the whispers appear, but we also have time to dedicate chapters to our party. For example, story beats you'll know came towards the end of the original are now moved around in Rebirth, shifting their priority and giving them a new lease of life for the growth of the party. Where Remake stayed a little more serious, Rebirth revels in humour to lighten the moments between the dread of Sephiroth or the overbearingness of Shinra. Yuffie in particular is genuinely brilliant due to her obsessive hunt for materia or her ability to just get travel sick in every mode of transport. But this is a dark game, one where the shadow of Sephiroth is cast long over the whole experience. The one thing we're all here for though is the open world, and it is a darn delight too. While this isn't a borderless world, it's large enough to get lost in for hours at a time. The planet itself is broken down into regions. With each region there's a whole host of side content to busy yourself with, which helps to level up the party and individual characters. While I do wish I could say the distractions are all made equally brilliant, there is a lot of repetition here. Scanning crystalline livestream features is an exercise in pressing the same button 3 times each time, never changing. Then there are the towers to be scanned that will uncover all these distractions and plot them on your map. A little frustrating, but they take up only a little time. This brings me to my personal big frustration. Chadley. He was annoying in Remake, but he is everywhere in Rebirth. In every town you visit, constantly messaging you with inane conversation. He is the reason for the side quests. And while he does dish out some materia and set up some cool simulations, his constant interruptions become frustrating after the first couple of regions. One thing you should know, minigames are a big part of Rebirth, and you'll find them everywhere. They're mostly enjoyable and offer up rewards for beating scores. My favourite minigame has to be Queen's Blood, the new card game. It's so engaging and kept me coming back way too often. One major minigame is catching chocobos, and it's required for fast travel. The chocobo have different abilities in different regions, gliding, flying, and more. They're also used to sniff out treasure. Though it's not all down to chocobos, there's a buggy reminiscent of Final Fantasy XV's Regalia vehicle, plus a plane flown by a familiar face. Onto combat, which hasn't grown that much between the two games when you boil it down. You still wait for your ATB gauge to fill, then cast spells or use abilities and items in between thwacking everything with a standard attack. Though it should be said, the synergy abilities always come with top-notch animation. I legit wish I could watch these on their own. Each member does have 2 forms of attack usually. For Cloud we get a fast-paced sword swinging or a more slow but more damaging attack. The fights manage to stay dynamic throughout the regions, though if you're playing on easy, it's unlikely you'll die or need to block many attacks. Playing on the lowest difficulty does remove a lot from the game, though it does allow you to focus on exploration and story. The combat, as well as equipping items and leveling up, can be as deep or as shallow as you want it to be. There are options to let the game decide what to level up if you want to focus on the story, or you can use a new folio system to choose new abilities and synergy moves by spending SP, earned through leveling up each character. The game's final hours are some of the best gaming moments I've experienced in recent years. From fights that are as cinematic as any blockbuster movie, to quiet moments of emotion that fill my eyes with tears. I wanted to reach the conclusion as fast as possible to find out what happened next, and yet I wanted to eke out every minute as I didn't want my time with these amazing characters to end. Yes, the game does have minimal flaws and slight frustrations, but they're mostly forgettable while you're watching Cloud and Sephiroth, or seeing beloved characters like Zack, whose inclusion will please a lot of long-term fans, and his involvement elevates many of the game's jaw-dropping moments. I'll be honest, many of the changes made from the original make a lot of sense, and improve the flow of the story. It's hard not to bring nostalgia into it. I can ignore these quibbles I have because of the countless times the game made me feel something, whether that be anger, joy, sadness or empathy. As I rolled the credits, I realised that this was exactly the game that I've wanted to play since I was 17 years old. It's playing one of my favourite games all over again, experiencing everything afresh, and loving it just as much as I did over 2 decades ago.